Well, welcome back to another episode of Back to Paranormal. My name is Brian Mitchell, and I'm here with my beautiful co-host, and her name is...
Marjorie.
Marjorie, hi.
Hello.
It's been a long time.
Hello, handsome. Long time no see.
It's been like a minute. Anyway.
We took a little break.
We took a week off. To kind of evaluate certain things, and the one thing that that I realized was we should just have our own YouTube channel. We kind of had our on YouTube, and we were kind of clumped in with another show, and I figured, let's just do a brand new channel and just have it exclusive for Back to Paranormal. So
amicably separated.
Yes. So. We did do that, and so we're still on YouTube. We just have our own channel. So
we also took a little time off to celebrate this small little thing of my half-century birthday.
That's right, and thank you for anybody that acknowledged that. We had a few people.
We did, and yes. Thank you.
Yes.
Honestly, it warmed my heart. I really didn't know how I'd feel about this big sort of milestone, but I have someone who makes me very happy. And
who is that?
You.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Silly. And
silly
and
old
the
me.
messages that I got from all of our wonderful...
What was that?
I don't know.
That was a weird one. Okay.
The messages I got from all of our wonderful friends really I was smiling for days. I felt like a princess.
Good, because you are a princess.
Thank you, darling.
And you're very, very beautiful tonight. You got sparkling eyes.
That's because I'm looking at you.
Aww.
There are those who look with the eyes in their head, and there are those who see with the eyes in their heart, and that is God's truth.
Thank you. Oh, well, we should get to that. What are we drinking tonight?
Well, we are going to be talking about a very, very famous and a very important case of an NDE, a gentleman who came back from dead. And his story has just rocked our nation. And as you know, I generally kind of prepare a beverage of sorts in keeping with the theme. And sometimes not. Sometimes we just pop a beer and want to chat with you all.
Yeah, but I have a feeling you came up with something.
This one's got to be special.
Yes.
So Ernest Hemingway had a beverage that he concocted. He was inspired to do many things, including writing. And living in Spain, he very often would spend his mornings... more than likely in a stupor, enjoying the customary culturally apropos bullfight, and it inspired him to create yet another excuse to drink, and so he created a cocktail that he called Death in the Afternoon.
Oh,
yeah. It was inspired by these bullfights which he would attend, where you're being confronted by courage and fear and life and death and these tremendous dichotomies that one must contemplate, and then sort of stagger home and find yet another excuse to imbibe. And that cocktail consisted of absinthe and champagne primarily. And given that, absinthe is 160 proof.
Oh. Yeah.
I decided that I would create our own cocktail for this discussion of Eben Alexander's Proof of Heaven. And I'm going to call it the Near Death in the Afternoon. So it's only 80 proof and champagne.
Oh boy. So you're...
And a twist of lemon.
I hope I don't get blitzed.
Near death, not death.
Okay. All right. Well, we should
You don't have to drink the whole thing. I've never made this before. I've never drank this before.
Okay. And if you find us passing out in the middle of this podcast, yeah, you'll know why.
Pull out all the stops.
There we go. So ready? Here we go. We're booping. Here we go. Boop.
Boop.
Ooh, there we go. Oh, what is this? Garnished with some lemon, right?
Lemon zest. A lemon twist.
Oh, I see. Here we go. Tastes like candy. No, it doesn't.
It tastes like champagne.
It does taste like champagne. Well, it's very, very yummy.
That people don't. Wait, can it be my lemon twist is already making a smiley face at me back? No, just playing.
Yeah, mine is making a big frown.
Forgive my cheeky humor.
So we're going to talk about this book. It's Eben Alexander. I hope I said his first. I've been calling him Eben.
I have too, but I don't think it is.
I think it's Eben.
Eben Alexander.
Eben Alexander. And he has 3 books. But this book is the one that started it all. Proof of Heaven. And so he is basically a neurosurgeon that did not believe in God. He didn't believe that there was anything after this, that he felt that consciousness was basically a product of your brain. And he didn't think there was anything after this. And then he went through a very dramatic medical issue, which really, he ended up getting a very bad headache and a backache, and basically he became brain dead.
He contracted an extraordinarily rare form of a bacterial E. coli strain of meningoencephalitis, which is commonly known as meningitis. Mm-hmm. What this does is meningitis infects the fluid that surrounds your spinal cord and your cranium. So it's the cerebral spinal fluid that those membranes are getting infected by this very, very promiscuous bacteria. E. coli, you've all heard of it.
Aggressive.
Very aggressive.
Yes.
And it's very, very painful, and it is very, very, very scary. And being this, raging, successful gentleman who's training to, within a month's time, climb the highest peak in Ecuador with his son, thinking, oh, no, I just have the flu and a really bad headache, and dismissing it. And I don't know if you know this, I know this. I know many people in the medical field, they put everybody else's health concerns as their number one because they took a solemn vow. And then when it comes time to dealing with their own medical concerns, for some reason, I've noticed those you see them outside the hospital smoking cigarettes, and they drink heavily if they're not performing a surgery, and all these things.
And they tend to think light of if they're getting like chest pain or in this instance.
It's a huge broad generalization on my part, but I have kind of noticed that throughout my life.
Yeah, no, it's crazy.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, I had a doctor in California that was... he was
very cavalier.
Oh, he was smoking when I came into the office. He was smoking when I left the office. I'm sure he was drinking in between.
Yeah, and then he's brandishing his burning butt at you like, hey, don't smoke, quit smoking.
Yeah, he'd be telling me, you need to lose weight. Hey, buddy, you need to lose weight, and he was very insulting. But, no, it's all right. It's all right. I don't know if he's still around anymore. He was up there at the time.
But this is an extraordinary virulent bacterial infection, and it can kill you within under 24 hours.
Yes.
So we're talking about a person who was absolutely brilliant, neurosurgeon, healing people, raging success 1 minute, and then the next minute he's literally just about brain dead.
Yeah.
And endured a coma state for about 7 days, and including the seizures, which also undoubtedly further the long-term neurological implications of damage and savagery.
Yeah, I mean, there was, I think there's a scale that he was talking about where they rate the brain,
Glasgow coma scale. It's
Yes.
a 1 to 15, and at a certain point, within 2 days, he's on level 8.
Yeah.
So, no, it was.
I think 3 is a corpse, right? I think that was correct. If you're on a 3, you're a corpse. You're basically you're
there's
dead.
no point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But he ended up having this experience, and I don't know if he didn't. I don't think he died. I think he was brain dead.
He did not die. He still had his heart, and he was on a ventilator.
Yes, but all the tests, there was no activity on any of the lobes, and basically they got to a point where they're just telling the family, just prepare for him to
Expire.
die. Yeah,
Naturally, when they went to take his lumbar puncture, which is commonly known as a spinal tap, and it's supposed to be normal. They wouldn't have any reason to perform one on a healthy person, but if they did, it would be clear fluid.
That's right.
And not only did it not even really need the puncture, because the minute the needle went in, it came gushing out because of like a fire hydrant that someone had let open on the street.
Green.
And it was tinged. It was green.
Yeah.
And that means that, and I actually can speak from personal experience, this person was going very soon, and absolutely, you cannot imagine the excruciating pain.
Now,
And
you have a personal experience.
I do.
Yeah.
I do. When I was 12, I somehow, and they believe from a mosquito bite, I contracted encephalitis.
Wow.
The summer that I was 12 years old.
Right. And so you had a similar experience with a lumbar puncture.
When I read, there were moments actually reading. Well, a lot of it is tough to take because it's so emotional, and it would be, and we highly recommend that if you're interested in near-death experiences, that you do read this book, because it is so very moving for so many reasons, and it will move you, and it moved me deeply to tears. But it's hard for me to get through the chapters where he's discussing medically the phases of his very, very expeditious demise and descent into this abysmal world, because I had that, and I actually I lived.
Well,
as you can plainly see.
You didn't go into a coma, though, right?
I didn't go into a coma.
Right.
I had all the other stuff.
Right.
I had encephalitis. And I had a tremendous fever.
Right. Your hearing was heightened.
My hearing was off the charts. My sensitivity to light. I obviously was sick as I couldn't hold anything down.
Yeah.
I was in absolute excruciating pain. Even though you're fighting, and the thing that he mentions in this that really rang true to me, because this is not an experience that, even though I'm 50 now, and that happened when I was 12.
You're 50?
I just announced that.
You don't look a day over like 25. What's going on with you? Jeez.
He's so good to me.
I'm such a cradle robber.
How did I ever get... See, this is an example of how good is God. I'm telling you. Right here. But
thank you.
You're fighting for your life, and your body knows you're fighting, and yet the way you feel, you're like, I just wish I were dead. And you're going crazy because you're going crazy, and your brain is very, very swiftly becoming infected and therefore impaired, and it's torture. It was hard for me to get through those few chapters that he was talking about that.
We were talking about this, and I said I had like the flu. It wasn't like I needed to be hospitalized. It was just it was bad. And I know it doesn't compare, but if you've had the flu and your joints are achy and you got a bad headache and you try to sleep, but you're going into this loop. It's like the dreams are just really, you can't sleep because the dreams are disturbing and you keep having the same dreams over and over again. And, I know when I got it, I just wanted to die. And I know it's no comparison to what Eben Alexander went through, but it kind of gives you a little glimpse into that when you're sick. But take that and probably multiply it by 30 with the pain and all that, and maybe even more. And then you kind of get an idea of what maybe you went through.
A priest was reading me my last rites.
Yeah. And, it's amazing that he
basically, the statistics are with this is that depending on your health, the level of your health and the time frame within which you are delivered to real serious medical help, you have a 30 to 50 chance of living.
Right.
After what he and I went through, it's about 10. And what he went through, usually those who actually do live are in a perpetual vegetative state.
Yeah, a lot of people don't recover from this. They don't go back to what they were. They go, they come back, but
you lose your brain.
Yeah, it's like maybe 20%, not even 10% of what you were. And this story is your story is amazing because you survived and thank God.
No, it took a while for me to start to, be able to like think clearly and things like that again.
Yeah.
And again, your memory is and the funny thing is that my brothers remember things. I have some memories from when I was a child and they're very dear to me. But there are times when it's hard for me because I sit, and the reason why I bring this up is not to talk about me. Actually, this is extremely important because when I sit with my family and they start talking about memories from before I had encephalitis,
right.
And these things are so vivid to them, and I feel like sometimes a complete outsider because I'm like, wait, what? I said this or you did that, and they have to tell me the whole thing all over again.
Yeah.
And sometimes, and I hate to admit it, sometimes just to feel like I'm part of the group, I'm like, oh yeah. But I really, there are things that are so dear to them that they've held on to that my brain has, for whatever reason, obviously I remembered how to read and write, and I went on to
all that
have
stuff
a very
came back.
good academic career and my friends, and but there are some memories, and it's like they're sometimes even years later that they're telling me these things for the first time, and it happens so often, and it's kind of heartbreaking because here on Earth, and this is why I think that is important to discuss, because as Eben Alexander was enduring his near-death experience when he had no brain capability,
no activity.
He had the ability to have these experiences outside his body in another realm, and there were things that he was seeing that he had never experienced before.
Right.
But towards the end, where they were like, if we're taking him off antibiotics, because if we keep him on the antibiotics, he will live and he will be a vegetable.
Right.
For days, months, years, forever.
That's right.
We don't know.
Right.
So they had to make that very executive decision to spare him a vegetative life.
That's right.
But in that period of time, he was seeing faces that he didn't know his own name. He didn't have his own identity. He was looking at all these other worlds, but he was seeing faces of the people who were there.
Right.
In the hospital, or who were even 100 miles away praying for him at church.
Right.
And so for someone whose complete brain is so infected with pus that they don't know, they can't even control their arms, their lungs, their eyes, their memory, any of that. And it's being wiped out and it's literally being killed. For him to see these things and know that these are familiar to him.
Right.
Was absolutely a phenomenal thing to me, because I can speak very, very distinctly about memory loss because of that kind of long-term neurological damage that...
What you went through.
What I went through. I mean, I clearly didn't go through with this gentleman. Thank God.
I think at some point when the family was told that they wanted to take him off antibiotics, that he was not going to last. His son...
They wanted him to just... expire gently into the night.
Yeah, because there was no brain activity. And his son basically ran into the room and pulled his eyelids open.
His 10-year-old son had stayed lingering outside the door of that conference long enough. And because his grandfather was a neurosurgeon and his father was a neurosurgeon, he knew enough to know.
Yes. But anyway, he opened up his eyelids and his eyes were basically one pupil was in one direction, the other pupil was in the other direction, which is generally not good.
Completely agog. Yeah.
So it was basically they expected him to pass away. And I think the next day his eyes popped open. And
no, but his son came running in and held his eyelids open and screamed at him.
Right, that's true.
And said over and over and over again, "You will be okay. You will be okay. Come back, come back, come back."
Right. And
at that time, even though Dr. Alexander was just about brain dead, he in his mind saw this face. And he realized, as happy as he was, and we're about to go on to describe the place that he did experience, because this is so important. But as happy as he was, and as loved, as infinitely, deeply, unconditionally loved as he was in that environment, in that place where he was no longer a human being, but just a soul, he knew, if I devastate this perfect stranger who was his son, but his lack of memory was like, there's this very valuable child who's calling to me. If I devastate him, it'll be a devastation that is irreparable. It is something that I will never, ever be able to exist beyond. But he didn't know who the face was and who the voice was.
Right.
And all of that, but there was something that was drawing him back. And it was that love of a child, which is
right,
bottomless.
Right. Well, he ended up opening his eyes, and they were focused, and he made a complete recovery in 5 days as far as his mental capacity. Which is absolutely amazing. And the doctors were, I mean, the whole thing here is basically for him to actually be alive and have those mental faculties back 100% is a miracle unto itself. But when he came back, he had a big story to tell. And he met somebody in that other realm that happened to be a sister of his, because what we didn't say was he was adopted. and his family, his mother and father, his biological mother and father, actually they put him up for adoption, but they ended up having a family anyway after that. And one of his sisters from that family ended up passing about a year prior to that. And he met her in heaven. And he did not know who she was until when he...
But he did keep describing her to his family. He said, there was a girl.
Right.
There was a girl.
Right.
She was with me.
Right. But he didn't know who she was until after he came to and he started recovering. The biological family actually sent him a photo of her. And it was basically, it was one of those maybe deja vu moments or something like that. But basically he realized that is her. And that's who he met in heaven. Very unbelievable stuff. Basically, this guy was totally agnostic. He called himself a raging agnostic. And which kind of leaves a little bit of a door open for the possibility of believing.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say.
Yeah, but it's...
his father was, sorry to interrupt you, but his father had been a highly talented neurosurgeon, and he had served as a medic in World War II. And the thing that his father had that sustained him through all of that horror was his Christian faith. And his father was able to reconcile his faith. It doesn't matter what faith it is. His faith, along with his trust and endeavors in science.
Right.
And
that's something that
Eben Alexander
struggled with. He really struggled, and he just became like anybody else in that field, that he just didn't believe. He just believed that it was basically your consciousness is in your brain, and once you die, that's gone. That's it.
Poof.
Doesn't go anywhere. It's just there. What I found really interesting was I've always wondered about this, like people who are, and I know other people have had this too, because when you think of somebody and they go through a situation where they have Alzheimer's disease, right, or a dementia, which is probably the same thing, I think, right, and basically they are gone. Right. They are, you can't really communicate with them, or if you can, it's basically, they don't know where they are or whatever. They don't know who you are. And the way Mr. Alexander explains it was that the brain is a filter, because the consciousness does not exist in the brain. But your brain is a filter that basically takes this information, and so you don't get the full effect of the broad consciousness that you would have without the brain. The brain basically taps it down so that you exist in this earthly plane. But with Alzheimer's, it's basically narrowing that even more, to a point where, your bodily functions are maybe okay, but it's like you don't remember anybody. And it's because of that filter. The filter is actually brought down to a point where you don't know who anybody is. But once you pass away, that filter is gone. And then you are totally aware of everything. And that always kind of bothered me, because I was like, well, they're kind of slipping away. How are they supposed to remember all this stuff? And it's like, because they have Alzheimer's or they're senile. And he explained it in such a way that it was like, it made sense to me. It made complete sense that we are not just of our bodies. Our mind or our consciousness goes beyond. And he even says, like, when you die, it's basically you're now all of a sudden that filter is gone and you have all this awareness and you know all things.
He does describe, he says it's, describing what I felt is challenging to the extreme because thanks to the bottleneck of linear language that we have to force everything through here on Earth, and the general flattening of experience that happens when we're in the body. And basically what he's trying to say is that there's, what we term, our word for it is consciousness, is not a product of brain activity. It's part of your soul. And in order for us to, it's like wearing clothes. Mm-hmm. And in order for a certain body to wear them, to leave the house, it has to be tailored. It has to fit, it's made for you. And that's what the brain is when you're experiencing life here on Earth, mm-hmm. in a human body. And life here on Earth is not so filled to the brim with the absolute, utter, unconditional love and the awe of the presence of this all encompassing creator, right? Where whatever you wish to call, I use the word God, and other people do too.
Or
Allah, Om, what have you,
right?
Vishnu, and so, and I really do appreciate that language because mm-hmm. I've always felt that way. I know that there's more, and I knew that what was, even as a small child, I would say, what's up in here is a universe. It's mm-hmm. a universe.
Right.
And I would say that to Amber, one of my best friends. I love her. And I would say, you don't have to be limited by this. There's more.
Yeah.
It's a universe.
And a sense of knowing.
But I was a kid, and people mm-hmm. would be like, you're a wacko. But that was just how I felt. And mm-hmm. it's nice to actually read someone who has that affirmative language saying, no, you were kind of feeling what was really the truth.
Yeah.
But it also, in a way, it's kind of a double-edged sword, if I may, because it kind of discounts. I love life here on Earth. I think we every day I have always felt this is an unspeakable gift from God. Mm-hmm. And it's not that I'm afraid of, going to that next place, but I just don't ever want it to discount the gift of life that we do here have now.
No,
while we're here.
There's so much beauty in the world, and it's just like, when we'll drive. We'll drive there's a beach here, Jones Beach, and we'll drive on. It's a parkway over there, right along.
Moses.
No, it's Ocean Parkway over there. You drive over there. Actually, there's a whole network of roads over by the beach there, but and that's one of those roads, right? But it's a beautiful area. And you get to see the water, you get to see the dunes, and it's very, very pretty. But just looking at the sky and the way the clouds form and the beauty of that is really amazing. And sometimes it takes my breath away. And I know it does with you,
Yes.
So there is a lot of beauty here on Earth. And in this earthly realm. But the way Mr. Alexander describes heaven is beyond. The colors are amazing, and there's cities. And there's this overwhelming feeling of love. That's the way he described it. And it's just amazing coming from somebody like that. There was a gentleman named Dean Jones who was he wrote a book called Under Running Laughter, and he actually was a Disney. He worked for MGM Studios, but he was a Disney actor, and he made a lot of films for the studio that were very well received and were box office hits. But he was a very depressed man, and he basically was suffering from depression. And his marriage was basically messed up. He was a serial cheater. And but he was putting on this front for Walt Disney because they were doing family films. And so one day he actually tried to commit suicide a number of times, and he recounts this in his book. But he was in Cherry Hill, New Jersey. He was performing in a play, and after the play, I think he tried to kill himself. You know, he would get on motorcycles and stuff like that and drive crazy. But he got back to his hotel room where he was staying, and he had a complete breakdown, and he screamed out to God. Basically, you know, if you're here, if you're real, and so you would consider him an agnostic, because an agnostic would not cry out to God. I mean, or an atheist would not cry out to God.
Eben Alexander did right before he went into a coma.
Yeah.
He screamed out, and he didn't remember this. He said, God, help me, please, God, help me.
Right. It's amazing.
And he would never have, in his normal living life, had said that.
Dean Jones considered himself an atheist, and so anyway, he cried out to God. And he said, if you're real, show yourself to me. And he had an experience where basically he felt the Spirit of God come into him. And he completely changed his life. I believe he had some sort of intervention, divine intervention. And so he totally changed his life. And he basically became and you know, people in Hollywood called him a Jesus freak, which I think is really unfair.
I agree.
Yeah. But anyway, he totally changed, and he was seeking out different pastors that he could talk to in different religious institutions. And one of the things that he did because of this, he set up an organization called Rescues, which basically helps people that are being persecuted from any religion from around the world.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and it still that organization still exists, but he started it.
Wow.
And but he did, you know, basically after that he was doing films that he and live performances that were celebrating the Almighty, and so he totally had a change experience. Well, here Eben Alexander had a total turnaround, because he came out of this coma and he recovered in 5 days. And maybe not totally, but brain-wise, he all his faculties came back. And he totally changed. He believed in God. He believed he actually went through something, because everything he saw was more real than here. Which I understand, because I had some experience where I experienced, and I won't go into it totally, but what I experienced was more real than this place. And I don't think I died or anything like that, but I feel like I had an experience because it was so vivid.
You left your body.
No, this was something else. I saw something that was so vivid and so amazing. Mm-hmm. And I'll talk about it on a later podcast, but I understand where he's coming from here, because I saw flowers that were absolutely amazing, glowing, and it's really hard to describe for me, but it was more real than real.
And that's what he says. He says that his memories of, he calls it the Gateway. When he writes about it, he refers to it as the Gateway Valley, mm-hmm. Where the sound is this just unbelievable symphony that's lifting your spirit ever higher and ever higher, on unbelievable colors that don't exist here on Earth, mm-hmm. colors that are brighter than bright, light that is lighter than light, a vision that is more than spherical than the vision that we have here, and etc. And what's interesting is the experience he describes, his in that next place is so similar to so many of. Remember when we did the movie? We did a podcast where we discussed an Angel Studios film called After Death.
Yeah.
And they all were describing the same thing. These are people who have never met each other, and they're all describing the same thing. And he is describing something inexplicably similar, but very personal to him also,
Right.
which I thought was really fascinating. What I think is, although I loved talking about that movie because it moved me so, but
Me too.
This book, what really strikes me is how it almost feels, and I don't know, maybe I'm overstepping, but
No.
every
No, you're not.
single thing in this child's life. This happened to him as a grown man, yes, but he's still a child of God,
Right.
or the Creator. Every single thing that happened led to that moment, and everything of his infection, and every single thing thereafter was of such an unbelievable purpose.
Right.
And as you always say, Brian, there are no coincidences. He was born out of wedlock to a young girl who very sadly had to present him to another family for adoption. He was adopted into a very loving family.
Yes.
Of deep overriding faith.
Right.
And who raised him to be an extraordinarily talented scientist who would operate on brains. Okay? He goes throughout his life doing all these things, everything leading to him to this prestigious profession. And then he gets this unbelievably rare, it's very rare for a healthy, middle-aged Caucasian man who is not being exposed to crazy things.
Right.
Didn't have a recent brain surgery himself. This bacterial strain of meningoencephalitis that rendered him, ironically, brain dead as a neurosurgeon, where he has this entire experience over the span of a 7-day coma.
A week, yeah.
And then comes back when he ought to have returned in near vegetative state,
Right.
only to recover. And the fact that he was able to recover his ability to articulate what transpired while he was gone.
He's a very intelligent man,
Extraordinary erudite.
and yes, and so he is very well spoken, and this book is very well written. But when you hear him speak, because we've done our research, I've done my research on him before we actually reviewed this book and read this book. He is just really, and to say amazing, because I use that word a lot, but he is, like I said, very intelligent, very articulate. He explains his experience as well as anybody could.
He makes anybody can understand.
Yeah.
And it's very complicated, but
Right.
he presents it in such a beautifully human fashion that you can hear it and ingest it and really think about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of,
but all of these things that aligned, and
Yeah,
then the fact
that's
that
right.
before he was infected with meningitis, his family, he had been reaching out to his biological family, and he had said, I really would like to meet you because I'm struggling with whether I ought to be a person of faith. I would like to know where I come from, and at that time they had just lost one of their daughters. His
Right.
biological parents went on to actually marry one another and have a loving, beautiful marriage, and they produced 3 daughters
right.
after they had to give him up.
That's right.
and they, when he reached out to him, to them, or to the children's home where he was adopted from, the first time they said, we're not at a place right now where we can accept you because we just lost one of our daughters.
Right. They were grieving.
They were really in deep, deep grief.
Yeah.
And he felt that he was rejected and an orphan all over again. And that sent him into even further skepticism about God and creation and faith and all of that.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, I think that, you're obviously, you are taught to have a faith by your parents, and that belief is really a faith that you learn young, because you learn that trust. You learn the trust that you have in your Father's love, that his hands will be there to catch you when you fall. And when that is withdrawn from you, that can chip away at one's ability to really pull up from your soul and have that faith. And it happens often. It happened to this gentleman, the one who moved me the most from that movie and After Death, where he became a complete atheist.
Yeah.
Although he was raised a Christian. But like I say, Christ is like salt. You can always add more, but you can't take him away.
Yeah, there you go.
That just works for me. But
right.
But he was really struggling now because he was perceiving yet another rejection.
Right.
And then he got this infection. And then when he came out of his coma and he said to his family, I had an experience. As soon as he was able to speak, to really use words,
Right.
He said something happened. And his eldest son was intelligent and sensitive enough to say, before you do anything else, before you read anything else, write down your experience.
Right.
Write it down.
Smart
Get
smart
it down.
kid.
Well, he's a scientist.
Yeah.
It's a very rational way of going about.
It is, yeah.
And the beauty of that is that you get to read this wonderful book. So I don't know who you should be thinking, Eben Alexander the Third or Eben Alexander the Fourth.
Yeah, his son is named Eben.
Yeah, after
and the other one is named Bond.
Bond.
As in James Bond.
Bond, James Bond.
Yeah.
So then, you
yeah.
know, he produced this wonderful work of literature, and it's not a long book. He makes things very, very easy to read. It's very moving, and I think, again, as with a lot of these books and movies that we discuss with you, it'll help you lead a more fulfilled life that's less driven with fear-motivated decisions.
Right. I think when you read this book, this book was on the bestseller list, New York Times bestseller list for over a year. And then he actually wrote 2 other books after that, but you have to read this one first before you get to the other ones. But this book, like I said, is so well written, it's so clear that, you know, we're just scratching the surface here of the book. We're just talking generalities and basically just trying to give you a flavor of it. But the book describes his experience, what he went through, and then his amazing experience in heaven that has not left him. He talks about this.
And it never changes. The story does not change.
No, it's basically he went through something. It's so vivid in his head that it's not going away. And so, anyway, the book is Proof of Heaven. And it's available everywhere.
A neurosurgeon's journey into the afterlife.
Yeah, and I picked this up at Barnes & Noble, but this is available on Amazon and like everything else, you know.
And you can get it in an audiobook if you're on a drive and
I think it's even on YouTube. You can pull it up from there and listen to it. But he also has done so many interviews. And when you listen to him, you'll realize, no, this is not a quack. This is a guy that really went through an experience. The one thing that I do want to point out here is for a neurosurgeon to actually say that he had this experience and come out and jeopardize his career and friendships, because that's what ends up happening, because people are like, oh, you're crazy or whatever. And some people are accepting, but not everybody is accepting. You're taking a big risk. And so, I think it's very, very brave of him to come out and describe that experience. But he believes that that his story was basically something that was made for him. That was made for him with all the stuff that went throughout his life, and his experiences afterwards.
Yeah.
During and afterwards. Basically, he believed that this was the mission that he was sent here for.
It really does seem that way. It seems as though every single component, every single aspect about this person, every single chapter or step he took in his life was led on a path towards this.
Right. It's everything reinforces a thing.
It really does.
For it, yeah.
The day that he was supposed to expire, his sister came to the hospital and brought his mother, and it had been pouring rain for 7 days, and the whole family felt. I can only imagine how that family must have felt, that the heavens were crying. This is a very strongly Christian family, and
right.
And his sister, as she got out of the car, apparently she got a group text from one of her personal prayer groups, that was texted to everybody in the prayer group, expect a miracle. And she said, right as she opened this text, and she's guiding her mother from the car to the hospital to see her son, possibly for the last time, the rain stopped, the skies opened up, the sun came out, and a full, complete rainbow.
Wow. Rainbows are magical, aren't they?
They are magical.
They're very magical, yeah.
Went the right arc right over the this is Virginia, so you have these beautiful hills there, and the sister just had this deep sense that things would
improve,
would be okay.
Yeah.
So there are no coincidences. There is this unconditional love out there that is there for you. You just have to open your heart to it. It is there. If a man like this can come back from the torture of encephalitis that you're living in, and I'm here to attest that it's horrible. It's hell.
Yeah, it's hell.
Hell. And then come back and tell you about that heaven is real.
Yeah.
And I say listen to it if you can.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's.
Well, what do you think of this book?
I'm sad he had to go through all that, but I'm happy that he did, because he brought back a very, very precious message.
He did. And I think it's an excellent book.
It's an excellent, beautifully written.
Yeah.
And, it's quite old. He also has another book out there called Living in a Mindful Universe, which we have not yet read, but sure we will. I know I would like to.
Well, I think
you don't have to have gone to the afterlife. I think that if you have people like this who are really doing the dirty work for you.
That's right.
I mean.
Well, this book is by Simon & Schuster, and it's about $18 in the United States. It is listed under religion, and basically he has a website. If you want to just go to his website to read a little bit more, it's www.lifebeyonddeath.net. And so you can check him out there, and then if you want to buy a book.
And sacredacoustics.com.
Sacred Acoustic, because he talks about the sound.
The symphonies that we're playing.
Yes, and there is an Om sound, which a lot of people believe that is the sound of God, right?
Transcendence.
Yes. And so if you go to sacredacoustics.com, he kind of worked with them to come up with this, recreate this ohm sound. And I think it's free to download. We've listened to it.
Really? You'll fall asleep. Yeah. Beautiful, beautiful harmonies that really move your soul. And we've talked about this when we talked about water.
Yeah.
And water being the conduit of vibration and how that will speak to your soul. Those vibrations speak to your soul.
That's right. Well, water is the life. It's basically the life force of the planet, right? So, there's something to that.
I like to try to the best I can to keep each podcast episode's sort of its own thing.
Yeah.
But so many of these things are so intertextual and
interconnected,
intertwined that it's hard not to go back and reference
some of the
other things. So
you're so pretty tonight, by the way.
Oh, hey, thank you. I'm 50.
You 50, and I'm 50. No, I'm not. Sorry.
You're my handsome man.
I'm a little bit older.
I'm really happy to be back doing this show with you.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun.
Yeah,
it's a lot of fun. We're going to extend that contest for the mug. The Back to Paranormal mug. We're going to extend that to the end of the month because we didn't get a whole lot of people writing comments and stuff.
You guys.
Yeah.
Why you got to be such a bunch of stinkers?
Yeah, don't slack off. We're not asking for a whole lot.
I'm not asking for a bag of diamonds.
Yeah, but we're going to extend that to the end of the month. And there have been people...
Although that having been said, I do have quite a few thank you notes to write since my birthday, so it sometimes is hard to put words on paper.
You're going to have to do that.
I do.
Yeah. All right.
Do.
Anyway, we have another interesting episode coming up next week, I think.
We do.
We do. We're not going to tell you what it is yet. You're going to have to come back and check it out.
Brace yourselves.
Yeah. So... Anyway,
listener, did you enjoy this near-death in the afternoon cocktail?
The cocktail was delicious. The book review was really a lot of fun, and but I do want to reach out to our audience a little bit before we go.
Reach.
Okay. So anyway, please tell a friend about us if you're enjoying the show. Please, tell your friends about us, and if you're on Facebook. Please put a post on there about it and share that to your bosom buddies out there. Also, we have, like I said, we mentioned at the beginning of the show, we have a YouTube channel. So please check that out, Back to Paranormal. And I don't know what else to say.
Thank you for listening.
Yes, thank you for listening. We'll see you all again next time on... Back to Paranormal. Good night, everybody.
Good night, and God bless you.
God bless you.